Meher, it's volume 2. We're going to begin volume 2 tonight. And that's the years of Meher Baba's life, 1922 to 1925. So only 3 years are compiled in this book, which covers from page 327, where we're going to start, and it goes all the way to 6 or 7, 29, almost 730. Wow. So there's about 400 plus pages.
Let me share my thing with everyone, because I always
Rosalie
feel
has a
it's for everyone.
Has an autographed copy of Volume 2 from Bao called Shuri, the author.
He's talking about reading it, so it's so good. So it's for all of us. With all love to you, dear brothers and sisters, may beloved Avatar Meher Baba bless your heart with his love, so that when you read his life on earth, the music of his life divine may within you. What does this say?
May tuned within.
May be tuned. It means may be tuned within you. Yeah, bow. That's sweet.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the beginning, which is called Descending into Illusion. These are 1922 to 1925. And there's a picture of Meher Baba seated in a turban, and his hands are in the Namaste folded position. Anyway, it begins on page 326, and we begin Lord Meher, Volume 2. And that today's date is August 28th.
With this
Correction,
right here?
August 28th, yes, 1996.
Here, I like this.
I know, it says, Son of Sons, all light. The sun has embodied itself in Meher's form.
I love it.
I know, I wanted to totally exemplify that. Descending into illusion. Even though his name had changed from Merwan to Meher Baba, Upasni Maharaj would always refer to him as Merwan. He in turn would always refer to his master as Maharaj. Strangers to him would call him Merwan Seth. However, all those people in Kasba Peth who were intimately associated with him in Poona would call him Meher Baba. During 1920, Upasni Maharaj traveled to Bombay to celebrate the Hindu holiday of Dasara, the victory of light over darkness. We'll stayed at Meghaba. Merwan was invited by Upasni Maharaj to be with him for Dasara. Accompanied by a few companions from Poona, Merwan joined him. During one celebration, the Hindu saint Gadaji Maharaj came for Upasni Maharaj darshan.
That's the one we see in the
Yes,
film.
the one he's always
exactly.
Yeah, he's always around Baba.
Baba said he was high, but it's explained.
And afterwards, they sang bhajans before Upasni, and Merwan was seated beside Upasni Maharaj. And then it has a footnote back in the back here, footnotes 3, page 327, and it says, "This is the only recorded incident of Merwan again meeting the Saint Gaj." Is that Gaji or Gaj? Gaj Maharaj, since his college days at a kirtan program in Poona during 1911. So he meets again.
Wow.
During the 7 years that Merwan was coming down from the God state of consciousness, Upasni Maharaj always openly expressed his concern for him. One night during 1920, at Gulmai and Kaikrushu's Irani's housewarming celebration in Ahmednagar, Merwan was singing bhajans, playing a dolak, accompanied by Gulmai's son, Adi, on the harmonium.
Oh, God, I would have liked to be there.
Like the numerous guests, Upasni Maharaj was enchanted by Merwan's strong and melodious voice. After some hours, Upasni told Gulmai, "Give tea to Merwan. He has sung a long time. His throat must be sore from the loud singing." Gulmai knew Upasni was very particular about his favorite disciple and promptly served Merwan tea. Another day during the same occasion, Upasni remarked to Gulmai, "Look at Merwan, he never eats. A little while ago he took a cold bath, but he put on the same dirty clothes. He has me worried. Go and get some of Rustam's clothes and Give them to him. Gulmai presented the clean clothes of her son to Merwan, but he unyieldingly refused them. She reported this to Upasni, who remarked, I told you he has me worried. I want you to look after him like a mother. Make certain he has good food and clean clothes. However, no matter how Gulmai tried to serve Merwan, he would refuse her requests and would not change clothes even when they became lice-infested. Lice. One day during the week-long celebration, Upasni Maharaj requested Gulmai and Karushu to take him to Babu Sahib's Wali's tomb in Ahmednagar. Bapu Sahib was a Mohammedan holy man.
Where is that, down the hill from
I tell you,
tomb?
somebody once told me, I don't know if it's in Ahmednagar though, it's in the city.
Oh, it's right in the city, okay.
Bapu Sahib was a Mohammedan holy man who was revered in Ahmednagar and had been closely connected with Karushu's father. Unknown to most people, but known to Sadguru Upasni Maharaj, Bapu Sahib was actually a God-realized Mazur. When Karushu's father died, Bapu Sahib came to the family's house to view the body. The God-conscious man demanded that some of the clothes of his devotee be handed over to him, to which the family consented. And there's a picture of him, the God-realized Mazur Bapu Sahib, who was considered a saint by the people in Ahmednagar. He's a saint. It was in Ahmednagar. Look at him, a Mohammedan saint. You know, it's funny. The Mohammedans have a tradition apparently in that region, because apparently Nagar still has probably a Muslim.
Well,
some of the businessmen.
They used to throw rocks at Vesta, you know.
Oh, really? Because of her?
Yeah, and she would wear. She was the first person that was Mara's handmaiden, and she was a big woman, and buxom woman, and she'd ride her bicycle out to her.
Oh, really?
And she wouldn't tell the mandali. She had her all bruised arms. She wore long. She was very brave, because she was the first, and after they got more accustomed and saw that we were there to stay. But, I mean, jeez, can you imagine?
Yeah. Why don't you pick up there
About right here, beneath Bapu? At Bapu Sahib Wali's tomb, Upasni Maharaj gathered the Rani family and some guests. At that time, Gulmai wished to offer Upasni a small amount of money she had saved from her household budget. Standing alongside the Mohammedan tomb, she placed the packet at Upasni's feet. He did not touch it, however, but instead beckoned for Merwan, and told Gulmai, God bless you, "This is my boy. He is very good. He looks after my needs. You may give the money to him, and he will do what is needful with it." So Gulmai gave Merwan the money. So actually, Upasni Maharaj told Gulmai to be his mother. That's his spiritual mother. You know, he actually threw roses on her tomb when she died, on her grave. Baba.
Oh.
Came to her grave and threw...
and who is Gulmai again?
Gulmai is Adi's mother.
Adi Rani?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because Adi had a brother Rustam. Yeah, she's Baba's spiritual mother.
Well, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead,
So Gulmai gave Merwan the money. Afterward, Merwan met in private with Gulmai in Kaikush room and told them, "Whatever Maharaj does is for the ultimate good. He has been perfected. He has the consciousness of God. Maharaj's mind is universal. You must try to help his work. You have come in his contact due to your past connections with him. Although he is a Hindu, he is closely connected with Zoroastrians. You have been to Sakori. There are no accommodations in the village. Those who go there find it very difficult to stay. There is a need for a few rooms to be constructed for people to take rest, if the money can somehow be raised." Gulmai asked how much, and Merwan replied, 2, maybe 4,000 rupees. Gulmai discussed the matter with her husband, Kaikushru, and Kaikushru agreed to help. During 1920, Merwan and Gulmai became closely associated through their meetings with Upasni Maharaj at Sakori. One time, Gulmai accompanied Merwan to Nasik. Soon after, she returned home to Ahmednagar, while Merwan stayed in Nasik. After a few days, Merwan showed up at her home in Ahmednagar and was welcome to stay the night. That evening, a singer was called to entertain him. During this occasion, Merwan commented to Gulmai's husband, Kaikushru, that he would one day become Khan Sahib, an honorary title conferred by the British, which he took as a joke. Merwan repeated his prediction in all seriousness, and years later the distinguished title was conferred upon him. Merwan remarked to Gulmai, "You will be like Babajan." Wow, that's a comment. Yeah. She protested, "How can you compare me with Babajan?" Turning to Babu Rao Cyclewala, who was seated beside him, Merwan, pointing to her, emphatically said, "Yes, it is a fact. You are like Babu." Next day, Merwan left with Babu Rao, leaving Gulmai with her family. He went to Poona, then to Bombay, accompanied by Gustaji and his mother, Shireen, and one of her lady friends, en route to Nasik. In Nasik, he and his mother and companions stayed at Saeed Sahib's family house. He's the one that he gave Meher Baba's name, huh?
Yep, that's right.
Syed Sahib. After some days, the ladies returned to Poona while he and Gustaji traveled to Ahmednagar. They stayed at Gulmai's home, and on the next day, he asked her to accompany him to Sakori for a week until the Hindu festival of Sankranti. She agreed. At Sakori, Merwan showed Gulmai his room that Upasni Maharaj had designated, saying she could keep her luggage there. She was aghast at the dirty condition of the room and, with his permission, cleaned it. Afterward, Gulmai went to stay with Durgabai Karmarkar. Then at dusk, Yeshwant Rao arrived and kept Merwan company until he was to meet with Maharaj. During this time, from the money that Kaikushru and Gulmai had raised, construction of a rest home and an ashram compound was underway in Sakori. A temple was also being extended, and a permanent canopy was being erected for arti and bhajans. One mason was in charge of the work, and Upasni's men and women, disciples, worked under his supervision. Durgabai would drive the bullock cart while the other women had to carry gamelas filled with stones, lime, and earth. Those are those big pans they carry on their head, and that's how they built the Pilgrim Center. There were even little girls carrying these big pans on their head of cement, and they'd dump it. Upasni Maharaj would assist the mason on finishing touches, and Merwan would also lend a hand while Gulmai assisted Durgabai in her work. After evening arti, all Upasni Maharaj's disciples, including Merwan, would sing bhajans into the night. Oh my God, that must have been something. At this time, Merwan taught Gulmai certain spiritual songs in his room, which she would inscribe. A theme of one song was Prem Nagarki Ran Katin Hai, the way to God is difficult. You know, I used to love when Adi would say these ghazals in Hindi. Oh, he could just blow you off your seat. Remember when he'd do that and then he'd translate? Yeah. He used to sing those. And there also, Steve Barry, somewhere, he can't find it, has a tape of Adi singing, which I want to get someday. Another theme was Kare Hare Tu Murli Vajavli. Oh Lord, why have you played the flute? Gulmai would practice these songs with Merwan until 9 o'clock. Then she would go to retire with Durgabai. During this period, Merwan did not close his eyes and seldom would lay down for rest. Upasni Maharaj would come to his room and beckon him. Come, Merwan, come. They would sit alone in Maharaj's thatched hut nearby the village's crematory grounds, where Merwan would note down on paper whatever the master would dictate. Merwan kept these notes in a wooden box in his room. Maharaj would continue for hours dictating point after point, and Merwan would go on writing until midnight, or even 2 o'clock. No one knows what was written.
You know something? You spoke of Adi.
Yeah.
And how Gulmai is his mother. And, you know, when I met Adi, I felt like he was my uncle.
So did I. So he looked like my uncle, too.
And he used to smile when I would tell a story or he would see me. And I felt this genuine affection for him.
Oh.
And he'd put up with some of my even, you know, like real Western ignorant
He enjoyed
questions.
you, though.
Yeah, like I would ask a question like, one time I remember, you know, he'd give a talk in the hall in Ahmednagar, the center. He'd do it, I think, once a week. It was a Friday afternoon or something. He'd give a talk there, and so a lot of Baba lovers who were staying at the Pilgrim Center would come into town to hear that talk.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it was in the evening or early evening or late or afternoon, but I remember one time, and I just made this statement to him. I don't know why, my mind was running, and I says, why did God even create a force that he calls love? What does that really mean? Why do you say love? I mean, it doesn't, you know, what is that? He says, sir, your mind can do whatever it wants to do. He says, if you want to think that way, go on ahead. He says, your mind is your own. You can think whatever you want to think. He says, yeah, you want to think that way? You think this love thing is something that was created, and so, yeah, go ahead and think. He says, you'll eventually come around. You know, and so I remember, and I felt so foolish asking him that question. Like, why in the world was this thing called love created in the first place? What does it mean? You know, why does it have to be? Why is there this game that, you know, we play? And he says, sir, he says, your mind is your mind can, oh, there's Debbie. Your mind can ask what it chooses.
That's
and
great.
So, I mean, but he was...
He
would ask me a time, he says, I asked him once, I said, do you like any, you know, cognac or things? And he says, if you don't mind, if there's no trouble. He asked one time for Remy Martin, and then one time he asked for Chavez Regal. And I remember he once made a comment, he says, I don't drink, I take Chavez Regal. I wasn't a drinker. It was when you take something so refined and sublime as Chavez Regal, it's not a drinker, it's like elixir.
Is that nice?
But he'd say he always would take a shot before he go to sleep.
He was gourmet.
Because he
said, even the way he dressed.
Right, no, but he said it helped the circulation.
Oh.
And you know, you ever go into his room and he covered himself?
Oh, yeah.
He would cover himself with a white sheet, either in the daytime or at night before he went to sleep. I think he went into like a place of meditation.
Yeah.
But he was not to be disturbed when, you know, his room was right. His room was right behind Pat's.
Yeah.
You know, Pat in the trust office.
Yeah.
He had a room there, right when you come into the trust compound, and you'd see Adi would be covered with a sheet, and you'd see his head sticking up. You know, you knew he was underneath there.
Jai Baba, my friend.
Hey, Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
We're starting
Welcome.
Oh,
Jai
Jai
Baba. We
Baba.
just read 1 or 2 pages.
Yeah. Jai Baba.
Hey there, Kennedy. Okay, how are you doing?
Hi there,
my friend.
Jai
How
Baba.
are you, honey? Say Baba.
We were just talking
About Adi.
Well, you want to get on this side so we can
Yeah.
hear the recording better? You don't mind?
okay,
We'll
sure,
get another
sure.
better one.
Sure, friend.
But the thing is, we were just talking. Gulmai, Gulmai again is Adi's mother. Adi Arani's mother basically was told by Upasni. Gulmai and Adi were followers of Upasni first. And Gulmai was told to take care of Merwan when he was just coming down from God realization.
Yeah.
And so, we're at that point to where, we just...
She was his spiritual mother.
We just started. That's how Baba
Gulmai.
looked when he just was, coming down,
sweet.
choosing a spiritual mother. And then this saint,
Look at him.
Bapu Sahib was a Muslim saint in Ahmednagar, right downtown Ahmednagar. But he had a tomb there that people would go to. But anyway, where do we end up?
Okay.
Oh, we're on the next page. Huh?
Okay, we just changed.
We're
look
here.
at the look in Upasni.
Oh, Upasni was younger there.
Oh, Upasni, yeah.
That's a sweet look.
Oh, he is handsome there, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. There's some cookies on the chair.
It does look pretty normal.
To your back of you. We didn't put them out. This chair over here. We put them on the little antes. The ants were starting to test them.
He dropped his cloth, and Gandhi felt very insulted because he was standing there naked. Upasni Maharaj.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, he dropped his mind.
So Upasni had an incident with Gandhi.
Yeah, and Gandhi says, how could he said to Baba on the boat, he says, how could he possibly be spiritual? He exposed himself. Or whatever. And Baba said, you don't know how great he is.
Well, going back to what I was talking to about Adi, I mean, it almost brings me to tears when I think of how I took him for granted. I thought Adi was just a nice guy. And Adi, his parents, his mother, was probably one of Upasni's closest women disciple, or one of them. Yeah. And some of the things that Adi and her saw and went through with a perfect master, besides with Baba.
Wow, amazing.
It blows my mind because, when I first met Adi, I just thought, he's like my uncle, a real nice guy. He likes to drink cognac and scotch and just a regular guy. And he talks fiery and he calls it like he sees it. And now that I read some of the background of him, I sort of feel, wow, almost just totally humbled by the fact that, I knew him. And I liked him. I really affectionately liked him. I looked forward to seeing him. Actually, I loved him. And he would see me as, Stankus. He called me, Stankus, what'd you bring me this time?
But Fred, if it was meant to be revealed to you that way, you would have had a different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Well, at
so
the time I
instead,
wasn't.
you had a real heart,
it was
companionship.
Exactly. It really.
Which was
sometimes when you meet somebody, who's this new, a stranger, especially a disciple, I wasn't at all afraid of him. Not afraid, or even in awe. Because sometimes you're in awe of people who are connected.
But you probably had a deeper relationship with him for many lifetimes, and there's familiarity.
Could have been. Because one day, I'm not one to really just ask somebody to go have a Coca-Cola. He asked me, he says, let's go have a Coca-Cola. At Sarosha's canteen. So we sat there and, we put straws in these. You don't drink from the bottle ever. You put a straw and we're slurping these Cokes. And he says, Coca-Cola.
Oh, I love it.
and then we talked about sex and he says, are you married? I says, no, this is, early 70s. He says, if you're not married, you should be careful. You shouldn't be promiscuous. But he said, if you're married, you should go like a rabbit.
Oh, funny. I have to tell you, that's great.
That's what he told me.
Well, I have to tell you this other thing that may be a little shocking, but Bob Street told me, and I thought it was funny somehow. But Adi was coming out from hearing Kawali. He had some Kawali tape or something, and he went, now that's poetry. He says, not this cocking kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's one thing also he would say. You and your mind and your Westerners, he says, if I put 3 things here, if I had beautiful scented flowers, diamonds and rubies, and I have shit, he says, which one do you take? He says, most of you people with your polluted minds don't even realize what you have. You take the shit. And he says you have all these other beautiful things that are being almost given to you. You know, the atmosphere of India. And he says, but he says everybody seems to want that because he called. You know, he called our involvement in our days in Maya and you know, getting mired in the shit of life because of where you. Instead of just like he used to always say to me, if you're seeking promiscuity, he says, seek the pleasures of life and lose the joy.
Say that again, Fred?
Seek the pleasures of life and lose the joy. In other words, you can have a perennial joy if you're not at all seeking pleasures. Joy,
all the time,
joy is with you in your heart when it's totally free of these kind of attachments, allurements.
Because you're making yourself unhappy, thinking you need something.
Well, because, I mean, he says right after the pleasure, is there a lasting pleasure? It waves. I mean, it wanes.
Well, I tell you, one time, I used to go to his God Speaks class, and the reason I went to the God Speaks class was not to hear about God Speaks, because I liked the little paragraph at the end that says, it's for the intellectual convulsions of the mind. That, you know, God can't be understood. He could only be, you know, loved. But anyway, I was there the guzzles are my favorite thing. He'd say them and he could just knock you off your chair. He'd say them with such force, and he wouldn't sing them because by that time he was having heart problems. Unfortunately, I never heard him sing. But anyway, this one time, it was my first time to India, and Lois was still there, and I was a roommate, you know. He shot me a love dart with his eyes, and I swear to God, I was all night floating out in space somewhere.
Really?
I was just totally intoxicated. It was like a honeymoon. I mean, it was like...
Adi's eyes were just...
Oh, man.
See, I met him in 77.
Yeah.
When he was here.
Yeah.
You know, and then he died by 81.
He was supposed to have been here.
He died in 80.
He was he was our Sahaba's guest for July 1980. He died in March 1980. But we already had a book. He agreed to come. I remember we were so you know, saddened. But it was, I mean, I was one of my first Sahaba's committees. I remember Adi was coming, you know, back.
Yeah.
He was back.
Well,
he was
he
here.
came the other time.
Yeah, he was here
that
76,
was a special
77.
one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What year was that?
76 he was.
Oh.
He was at the Pilgrim Palace.
Oh, it was 76?
76.
Oh.
Was it 77?
I think it was 77 because it was after I'd met him in India.
Okay, 77. One of those.
But that, man, when we have a film of it and people were singing and it was kind of like our...
We have a video, I think, in the center file here.
Yeah.
Steve Berry took the film that was starting to, you know, fade, put it on videotape.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, you could still see him, and he was fiery.
He was fiery. But, you know, he was a lion and the lamb. Because when he would get after people and, you know, like fire. But when I had a talk with him, he said I was being too hard on myself. And it was very sweet. It was like more like an uncle. You know, I just sat there on the swing and Altadine at the pages. And he was very beautiful. And he used to raise children. There's a child in the trust, Babadas, that he was only like 2.5 years old when I first went to India in 76. And I didn't know that Adi was supporting, you know, helping raise him. He loved children. And one time he's like fiery at the God Speaks. On Friday we'd have to leave Meherabad. We could stay there Monday, and we'd have to leave on Friday and get accommodations in town. So I would go to Akbar. I go to Meher Colony that Erich's uncle Nashawan ran. Did you used to do that?
I've been visiting Meher Colony once. Can I tell you, I confess to you, I was scared to stay there. I heard it was very primitive, maybe that's the wrong word, but I was told that you ate hot Indian food. You know, you ate real Indian food, didn't you? And I always felt a little bit adverse to that.
It wasn't hot. It wasn't hot.
But I always would avoid staying there because I was a little more conveniences, you know. It was quite simple.
Oh, it was simple.
Yeah, and so I would stay there, but now I wish I did. because of the connection of
the
Ericsson's family.
Well, she used to cook.
I would stay at this East-West canteen, which they started serving alcohol there, and which became quite, loud and noisy and really not that, a place to hang,
So like Nashawaan has his tales. I mean, Bobby used to come by this place. He's not an off-by press. It's sold now. But that's where Baba Jan had herself driven up to look at Baba for the last time, and then he showed the spot where they looked at each other for some time.
Where? In front of
Akbar Press.
in Nagar.
It's right across from the bus station.
Yeah, right.
The ST bus
right,
station.
the ST bus station. I always thank for the rain that comes because you don't have to smell the urine.
Oh yeah.
And it smells a while too when it rains.
Oh,
but if
yeah.
it rains a couple of days, the urine. You imagine all the urine in India that's washed down those streets.
Well, think about the urine on all the streets. That's why it's like, you wear scarves.
I don't mind the urine.
around your face.
Talk about
Yeah.
bacteria that can breed with the dust. I mean, the dust brings up the bacteria.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and everybody, I don't care who you are, man or woman, child, everybody's got to go. You don't have public restrooms, and really, if you do have them, they're miles away from each other.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't dare to go into one. I went into a ST bus stop. You know that bus stop between Poona and Nagar?
Yeah.
It makes one stop, the third-class bus. It pulls in. It's a 15-minute stop.
You see, like a cobra could get you in
Well,
there.
I should have went out into the field. That's one of my first trips. I went in there, and I went in, and there was yellow urine caked onto the urinal. I don't know how to measure it. I'm sorry to bring it up, but the point of it was, I gagged.
Did you throw up?
I almost did, but I must have inhaled I don't know how many germs because on my way back to Poona, on my way back to Poona, I never was so sick in my life.
Oh my God!
I thought I was going to die.
Oh.
I had a fever. It was the highest my body probably could stand.
Oh.
And I stayed in
This would be a story Mira would kind of like actually.
I stayed in the cheapest hotel, the Nanking Cafe, which Jal turned me on to because it was like 5 rupees a day. It was just like, which is like 50 cents or less or whatever. And it was open bay sleeping. In other words, you'd have a room like this with 10 beds in a row, and they had 2 private rooms, but most everything else. And I never forget, I was so sick. I asked her, the proprietor. She was a Portuguese Indian woman, from Goa area. They have Western. She married a Chinese man, and her husband was from China, and she was Portuguese Indian.
Wow, she was mixed blood, like.
Yeah, but she looked Western. I mean, I thought she was Spanish.
Wow.
And she was Indian though. And hello, she wore Western dresses, no saris. And I says, I'm very sick. Oh yes, you do look very sick.
Oh, no.
I was throwing up. So they called a doctor, and this doctor, I'll never forget him. He comes in his white jacket, it was a regular like Indian, not an Indian jacket, a Western cotton. But it was frayed elbows, frayed cuffs, but it was clean.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was stitched about 1,000 times. In other words, he did not want to ever give that coat up. And he's a doctor. And the thought came across my mind: this man's not out to be a doctor for money. He's out to be a doctor because that's his karma.
Yeah.
Because he's in India. In the West, he'd be hanging his shingle up. And so I never forget him. He reminded me a little of Gandhi. He had balding hair with speckled,
So he helped you?
He comes up to me, he says, let me give you these penicillin shots. And he says, if nothing happens, so he gave it to me. Nothing happened. And I said, I still feel sick. So finally...
How long did he stay with you?
About an hour or so. And then he came back the next day when he heard that I was still sick. And I was chalk white.
Oh.
And I couldn't eat. I was vomiting.
Oh.
I had runs.
Oh.
Every orifice in my body that could leak a liquid was. And then so finally he prescribed theromycin, which is a heavy, heavy antibiotic. In fact, that stuff could really hurt your liver if you... But I took that, and I couldn't believe it, in 24 hours. I was on a train going back to Bombay, able to do it. But then when I got back to Puerto Rico, where I was working at the time, air traffic control in San Juan, I had the runs, and I craved cheese, crackers. Don't talk about salads, man. I couldn't take any salad, citrus, anything that was like potatoes, stacked,
Anything that would bind.
starchy stuff that would bind.
Yeah.
But I was losing weight. I was chalk white. And, chalk white compared to what I read, it's hard to believe. And so finally, guys I worked with at this airport said to me, "Hey, you better go to a doctor." So I went to a doctor. They did a biopsy and a stool.
Yeah. What was it?
He says, "You got dysentery, and it's almost amoebic dysentery, which could kill you."
Oh, Baba.
So they put me on a plane to Toronto, Canada, because they. Well, excuse me. That's another trip I'm confusing. But I got sick second time I went to Toronto. I remember this doctor prescribed this stuff chalk-like. It's almost like that Malix.
Oh,
Malox.
yeah.
This is flagell, it's called. It's arsenic-laced chalk-like substance. He said, when you take this 2 tablespoons, please lay down. And I remember taking it, and I felt started to hallucinate. The poison. They poisoned me. They poisoned my body. It was so bad. In order to kill what's in me, and I partially poisoned.
To counteract another poison.
Exactly.
Do you have parasites or?
Oh,
was that
I
what it
was loaded. I mean, he told me, he says, he hadn't seen nothing like this since he was in Borneo or somewhere.
Just from breathing.
Well, also, I think I drank some water. I also drank.
You had other things besides.
I drank water too.
I mean, besides amoebas, you had other stuff.
Well, I didn't have the amoebas.
No.
It was close to it. I had parasites.
Oh my God.
I drank water in India also.
Oh, Fred.
Well, here's what happened on my first trip.
Oh my Lord.
I was thirsty. I was drinking Cokes, and I was taking a train from Delhi. I landed to Bombay, and I was drinking orange sodas and Coca-Colas, and I wouldn't touch water. But what happens, that stuff over there in India is very acidy, the carbonation. I started going to the urinal, and I was burning, and my stomach started to burn from all the acid built up. So we stopped at the train station. I said, I'll make sure I'm not going to drink any tea, which tea also I was mixing. And so I saw water. And this guy put a glass of water up for a patron. Nice, clear water. He says, oh, guys, sir, can I have a glass of water? Dips it into a bucket.
Oh, Lord.
And puts it on the counter from a bucket. I swear, when I looked at that glass, I thought I saw a skull and crossbones. I swear. It was a hallucination.
Did you drink it?
Oh, I drank it.
Oh.
And then I put down and asked him for a refill.
He sees skull and crossbones and he asks for a refill.
Oh my God.
Because you know why? You got to see how it felt. That cool water just cooled my acid condition. I went, oh God, that's what I need, water. But at the time, they didn't sell bottled water. Now they do in India. You see that bottled water at most hotels and stuff. So, but anyway, that's why I was so sick. So in other words, I stayed in India 2 weeks, and towards the end is when I went back to Poona, when it started coming on, and some of that antibiotic tended to help me a little bit. But then when I got back to Puerto Rico is when it really hit me, and I was literally, basket.
Oh, Freddie.
Yes, Fred.
Yeah, so anyway, that's a story
Look
about.
at this woman here. Pilamai, look at her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so anyway, where are we now? Well, let somebody else
Right at
pick
the,
up.
Kennedy, you want to reach up?
Where's it, Sakori? Oh, yeah.
I think it's the top of the page.
Yeah, that's Sakori.
What's this?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, right here.
Real
Durgabai.
fortunate. I only got a spider bite.
Durgabai, right.
What's
It was
this?
serious.
During the day?
Right up here, Durgabai.
Yeah, right, Durgabai.
Oh, okay. Durgabai would always stay awake waiting for Merwan to return to his room. She would keep food ready for him if he felt hungry.
And this is, pardon me, this is Adi's mother?
No, Adi's mother is Gulbai.
Oh, okay, so who is
And
this person?
I forgot her
Durgabai is one of Upasni Maharaj's
Disciple.
other sisters, a nun,
Okay.
like inside his holy ashram.
Oh, here it is right here. At that time, Durgabai was Upasni's most trusted disciple.
Okay.
And loved Merwan profoundly. Lose the next sentence. She was the only person at Sakori to whom Upasni revealed, Merwan is the avatar, Adi Shakti. During the day, Durgabai also prepared Merwan's meals. He would come to the kitchen and always request Gomai. Gomai? to eat with them. He would shower his affections on Gomai and insist that they share the same plate. Usually he would eat a few morsels and make Gomai finish the meal. Merwan would ask for food at any odd time, and if, for some reason, there was any delay, he would not eat it. That is why Durgabai always kept food prepared and was ordered by Upasni to be at Merwan's beck and call.
I just want to tell Debbie that when Gomai passed away, Baba came with roses, not just one rose, and threw it on her grave. Baba himself. So it's just, can you imagine?
By the way, Fred and everybody, Tamara bought a garland of flowers from the market and placed it on Mani's body before she was cremated for our Baba Center.
Oh my, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm just so touched by that. I surely would like to listen to hear their account of that cremation. It must have been just so
Awesome.
Awesome, yeah. Oh my God.
Did you heard the story that
the white smoke.
the white smoke and the sadhus coming because it was a great Sadhini, a great goddess.
They counted
Pure smoke.
Yeah. They saw white smoke from a great
Saw
distance.
the white smoke.
Right, because they do that on a consistent basis along the Ganges, I was reading.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. They actually have places where tourists can go watch where other religions within India, they can go watch them cremate other bodies. So if they saw something special happening, they were over there watching somebody else's body burn.
Oh, I
Then
see.
they said, wait a minute, this is... So they were reading the smoke like the old Indians used to do.
Yeah, right.
You know, when
That's what that
when you
was.
think
All right.
I know.
well, when you think about it, it's just another aspect of life, and if you do believe in reincarnation, you are more or less heralding the passing of somebody who's special.
But I never thought of reading the
I never heard of that until that's something.
That's what that is. But yeah, in the New York Times, I may still have the article because I put them out. They talk about how tourists can go to certain parts of India along the Ganges and watch bodies being burned. That's cremation.
Yeah.
Bodies being burned. So that's not unusual at all. Anyway.
I'm sorry, I just
No, that's
my
wonderful. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually, are we ready? Usually, when walking back from Upasni's hut late in the night, Merwan would not ask for food, even if he was hungry and had not eaten all day, for Gomai would be asleep in the kitchen with Durgabai? Durgabai. In the morning, Merwan would affectionately tell Gomai, I went to bed hungry, as I did not wish to disturb you. Gomai would then apologize and insist that he eat, for she was ordered by Upasni to take care of him and make him eat. Excuse me. On the 14th of January, 1921, the Hindu holiday Makar Sankranti was celebrated at Sakori. Upasni Maharaj's men and women disciples assembled, including Merwan, and performed puja before him. Upasni sat naked except for his gunny sack, while the women put their gold ornaments on his body. Later, many poor people from the neighboring villages came to share in the feast, and Upasni distributed clothes for them. Afterward, several of the poorest people were bathed, including the most destitute lepers. Merwan helped Upasni bathe them. During this celebration, a Zoroastrian lady named Gulami Hormuz Irani of Karachi had come.
Pilamai. You mean this Pilamai, this one?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Pilamai.
Had come to Sakori at the request of Gomai. Gulami was staying with Upasni for a month with her children. She was suffering from severe mental depression, and Gomai believed Upasni could help Gulami as he helped her.
Is she wearing a Baba button?
Yeah, that's about it.
Oh, it's a Baba button.
One day, Gulami and Gomai were sitting near Merwan, and he requested Gomai to sit closer, saying, I have something I want you to understand. Every Sadguru has a spiritual mother. Durgabai is Maharaja's, Narayan Maharaj and Tajuddin Baba also have one. Similarly, All Sadgurus have spiritual sisters too. Likewise, you are my spiritual mother, and Pilamai is my spiritual sister. I have a past link with both of you since many lifetimes. I am telling you the fact that I am your son, and I am your brother, Pilamai. You are a most fortunate woman. Wow. Taken aback, Omai responded, I know nothing about spiritual facts. I am not equal to even the dust under your feet. I am not worthy of anything spiritual. I am a simple woman, quite tired of life, with the one desire to stay near Upasni Maharaj always, to serve him and die at his feet. Merwan looked at her seriously and said, I am Maharaj, and Maharaj is myself. Only the bodies are different. I am his son. Do as I tell you. Gomai was ordered by Maharaj to always bow to his wish, so she accepted what Merwan had declared. Later he confided in her, you and your whole family are dear to me, and there is a certainty of our staying together in the future. I want you to know that even if the whole world goes against me, you and your family won't leave me. Some days passed, and Merwan was sitting under the canopy of the Hindu temple in Sakori with Durgabai and Gomai. Paintings of different Hindu gods had been hung inside the canopy. Merwan began telling them the story of Sudama, a devotee of Lord Krishna. After finishing that story, Gomai asked for another, and Merwan replied, how can I explain everything?
Well, I like the fact that she sounded like she was suffering a severe depression. You know what I mean? And look at the stage she's at. You know what I mean?
Reminds me of that one girlfriend of yours.
What girlfriend?
The girl that comes.
Deborah?
Is that yeah, doesn't she a little bit?
Something,
Her cheekbones.
Yeah.
She's very thin. Isn't she from, the Bay Area? Or
from the Bay Area, yeah, she's in Santa Cruz.
She reminds me of Devana, though, in a way.
Yeah.
Kind of the shape of her face or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Devana.
Yeah, Devana, yeah. She looks real tall, that woman, doesn't she? She looks like she's really tall.
Are we ready?
Sure.
Okay. Gomai pleaded, Merwan, you know everything. Merwan smiled and then explained. When one visits Bombay, one goes to some particular place. One does not see every nook and corner of all the city. Why don't I explain everything that's similar to this? Interesting. In 1921, Prohibition came, and there were riots against alcohol. Merwan closed his toddy shop in Kasba Peth and left Poona to stay near Upasni Maharaj in Sakori. During 1921, Merwan was through Upasni Maharaj's direct help, Merwan had achieved the knowledge and authority to control the activity of the universes. When it was time to begin to release the necessary push in consciousness for the next phase of humanity's development, he was ready to bid farewell to Upasni Maharaj and establish himself on earth as Lord of the universe, the Avatar. This time came during January 1922, when Merwan, fully perfect, left Sakori as a master. As he rode away in a tonga to the train station, Upasni Maharaj, with tears in his eyes, saluted him as Adi Shakti, the Avatar. Seeing the king of yogis weep tears while Merwan departed to begin his divine work, the whole universe was in song, singing the name of MeherBaba. For it was not the time of Merwan that our age would remember as the descent of God, but MeherBaba, our compassionate Father.
It was not the name.
Name.
Right. Okay.
For it was not the name of Merwan.
Right.
Say that again, please.
I'll read the whole thing.
Yeah, read that again.
Seeing the king of yogis weep tears while Merwan departed to begin his divine work, the whole universe was in song, singing the name of MeherBaba. For it was not the name of Merwan that our age would remember as the descent of God, but MeherBaba, our compassionate Father.
Yes.
Right. Right now.
Now we go to the formation of the circle.
Isn't that interesting that size? That one person had Sahib was the one that named him that. I mean, what a role, you know. Now that's interesting, though. It's the formation of the mandali, the circle.
This is going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about Bombay.
Yeah, this is, these almost supplement the God-Man, don't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're actually more in detail than
You mean the God-Man by Purdom?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Unless there's
yeah.
another God-Man book that I don't know about.
Well, now we're going to get into some teachings by Baba, where he gives the disciples, like you'll see in the next page, where he talks about what his circle means.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's,
Yeah, well, this is going to be great because...
what page is that on?
That's just right on the next page, 337.
Can we skip?
Well, we should...
Don't mind me.
We'll get there.
Anyway, all right. Should I continue or somebody else want to read?
Debbie, you want to read?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to each other.
Okay, I'm starting here.
Yeah, that's really fascinating stuff.
Oh,
Where am I starting
great.
from?
Yeah, right at the,
Here?
Right at the very beginning.
chapter.
Formation of the circle, the
Yeah.
mandali. Da, 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 da. Okay.
All right.
Meher Baba had not bathed during his entire 6-month stay of Upasni Maharaj's ashram in Sakori, and full of lice. Reaching Bombay by train, he went to Munshi Rahim's house on Sharni Road. Munshi was very happy to see him, but was greatly shocked by his condition to bathe, and he consented to do so with Munshi's help. Soon after, Meher Baba wrote to Sadishiv Patel in Poona to arrange for his own personal use the immediate construction of a japti, a thatched hut. He explicitly indicated in the letter that on his return to Poona he intended to rest at night in his hut instead of at his parents' house. Later, accompanied by Munshi, Meher Baba visited Dr. Ghani's dispensary and inquired how he was doing. Ghani bitterly complained that the dispensary had shown no progress, that very few patients had come, and he confessed that he was disgusted with his medical practice. Meher Baba advised, if you sweep your dispensary and keep it clean yourself for 6 months instead of the servants doing it, you will prosper both materially and spiritually. From that day on, Ghani began sweeping the dispensary. Things did change after months of doing such work, although not as he had expected. Later, Meher Baba expressed a wish to visit Mandwa and asked Munshi to telegraph certain persons in Poona and Lonavala to invite them to join him on the journey. Munshi, Dalvi, Latif, Gustaji, Bailey, Ghani, Abdullah Harun Jafar, and a professional singer accompanied Meher Baba on a coastal steamer from Bombay to Mandwa on January 23, 1922. Just before departure, 2 Muslims, S.M. Usman and Ramju Abdullah, arrived on board. Usman had been invited and felt inclined to invite Ramju, who was his close friend. Ramju had previously seen Meher Baba several times, but had not had the opportunity of being with him for more than a few moments. The group of men carried baskets filled with sweets, fruit, chutney, and bread. As the steamer chugged out of the harbor, Meher Baba started distributing some of the food, and while eating, he became radiant and the atmosphere joyful. Gazing at the receding city, one of the men began to extol life in Bombay. Pardon me. Its magnificent buildings, its landmarks, and beautiful shoreline. And Meher Baba also praised its grandeur. But he then remarked, "Is it the sight which is great, or the seer?" A debate ensued among the men. Then Meher Baba shed light on various angles of spiritual ideas which stimulated new perceptions in their minds. After an hour, they disembarked at Mandwa and walked to the bungalow which Dalvi had rented. After settling in, some went out for a stroll around the town. Ramju was a strict Muslim, and he found a quiet place where he began offering namaz, prayers. When Ramju returned to the bungalow, he found Meher Baba in an irritated mood. Upset, he remarked, "Some go out for a stroll, some occupy themselves in prayer, while I am left here all alone waiting for everybody to return." Hearing this, Ramju was profoundly impressed because he had been in a secluded spot where no one could have seen him, and Meher Baba had stayed inside the bungalow the whole time. This sudden uncanny observation gave Ramju an overwhelming experience of Meher Baba's omniscience. Omniscience?
Yes.
Okay. After lunch, a renowned sitar player performed. The old man played so well, and the effect was so profound, that another Muslim, Abdullah Jafar, suddenly began weeping uncontrollably. Then Latif was more overwhelmed, began to slowly jump up and down in an ecstatic motion. He then began jumping higher and faster. The tempo of his movements became more frenzied until his whole body was shaking.
Jumping, Debbie?
Yeah, he says he was jumping up and down, higher and higher and faster in an ecstatic motion. The tempo of his movements became more frenzied until his whole body was shaking uncontrollably.
Who was that?
Latif.
Oh, Latif.
Latif then screamed this poetic line, "Call a serpent from the jungle to dance to the strains of this heavenly music." Latif was seemingly out of control, having an experience of ecstasy. Meher Baba looked at him carefully, then told the sitar player to continue playing, or it would be fatal to Latif. The old man continued, gradually slowing the rhythm. Latif, in turn, gradually stopped jumping. Afterward, Meher Baba's experience was not a trance. He was overwhelmed. His experience was caused by the vibration from the music. He had to jump. It is a very rare gift in a singer to be able to create such a vibration. The voice had to be just at the right pitch. The sound can both kill and revive. Meher Baba remained in Mandwa for a few days, and it was during this stay that he referred to himself as being a God-conscious master, a Sadguru or Kutub, and remarked about his mandali, circle of disciples, for the first time. From the very beginning, I have a circle consisting of a fixed number of men and women. In the near future, these individuals will gain the ultimate experience of truth and knowledge. Out of millions of souls, only one becomes perfect. Perfection entails unimaginable hardships and sufferings. The perfect man can bestow divine consciousness, the experience of infinity, upon anyone in the twinkling of an eye. The perfect man bestows conscious divinity at the right moment upon those who have an age-old connection with him. To clarify this, suppose a man has suddenly risen to wealth. After becoming rich, however generous he may be, he will not distribute his riches to every poor person in the world. He will give it to the selected few who are closely connected with him. Further, suppose that this wealthy man is driving in his car and passes a pauper lying beside the road. He will either leave him there or stop and hand him some money. But if he comes across a poor man and discovers him to be his long-lost brother, how will he react then? Despite the importance of his errand and inherent nature of his position, working to gain more wealth, he will stop the car, and without the poor man's asking, he will take him in his car to his house and keep him there in luxurious comfort. The same is true in the spiritual path. To acquire the gift of divine knowledge, a person must have a close connection with a perfect master. It was because of this spiritual relationship between myself and Baba Jan that she, without my asking, striving, or longing for it, bestowed on me the experience of God I now have. And it is this intimate spiritual relationship which will make me, in the very near future, share the infinite treasure with the 12 of my first disciples. Hearing this conclusion, each man wondered if he was one of the fortunate people in his circle. After clarifying to the group of men that he was indeed a God-conscious guru, out of the highest regard they began referring to him as the Master or Baba. After 3 pleasant and enlightening days in Mandwa, all the men returned to Bombay on January 26th and stayed at Munshi Rahim's house. Meher Baba informed Munshi that he would soon return to Poona and reside there in a thatched hut for some months, after which the center and his activity would shift to Bombay. Munshi expressed that he was anxious to stay near him, but he was told by Baba to be patient and remain in Bombay. Later in the evening, while strolling through the Charni Road garden, the men gathered around Meher Baba. He openly asked each one about his individual difficulties before the group, then instructed each man accordingly. Ramju Abdullah had been looking forward to pouring out his heart to the master. However, he was so impressed by Meher Baba's discoursing that he kept silent, wishing not to disturb him with his personal troubles. Surprisingly, Ramju was the only one whom Baba did not ask about his personal affairs. Usman reminded him about Ramju, but Baba compassionately replied, "He is coming with me to Poona tomorrow, and I will see to it then." Meher Baba took a train to Poona the next morning with Gustaji, Gani, Bailey, and Ramju. Ramju was accompanying them as far as his home in Lonavala. During the train ride, the topic of the circle again arose, and Meher Baba further explained about the mandali. Although the circle of a perfect master has 12 important men members, the total is 14 with 2 women, and each person has 1 shadow. So the complete total of the circle is 28. 14 members with 14 other members as their shadows.
What's that?
Well, here we go.
Heard that? Like Gustaji was Baba's shadow.
Oh, so one of us
has
is
a shadow.
Oh.
Mara's shadow is Portia. Is what
Is that
Adele
right?
says. She plays that role.
Portia,
What does
older
it say
Portia.
in the footnotes?
In the footnote it says, for an explanation, 122 people, and a perfect master circle of 14 people, read Meher Baba's discourses. But they don't say that in the discourses.
Not about the shadows, that's right.
Not about the shadows. I've heard about the shadows before, but I didn't know it was for all 14.
I didn't.
I thought it was just one shadow. You know, that was Shadow Baba, which was
Baba.
Ghani, I think.
No, it was Gustaji.
Gustaji. It was
Gustaji. And Mara's is Portia.
Yeah.
No, but it says, well, when you read the next paragraph, it'll explain a little bit.
Okay. The original 14 will be inevitably like the perfect master, one in God. The 14 shadows will see God.
Well, the 14 shadows will see God, so they're not going to become God. So keep going.
Okay, to see God, however, is not a trifling matter.
Right, that's for sure.
From thousands of yogis, mahatmas, and walis who intensely long to see the light of truth, very, very few, by their own efforts and without the help of a perfect master, reach the state of sainthood where they can actually see God. But to become one with God is impossible without the help of a perfect soul. After this explanation, he looked at Ramju closely and asked, "Do you wish to follow me?" Ramju nodded. "If so, then you will have to do as I say." Ramju nodded that he understood. "If you become a follower, then you have to stop thinking of material matters and worldly problems. Think it over well and let me know your decision." By then, Ramju was deeply impressed with Meher Baba and was therefore quite ready to leave his material affairs and follow him. Meher Baba further inquired about his occupation as a cloth merchant, and social activities. Finding out that Ramju took part in political agitation for India's national independence against British rule and was an active member in different independence movements, he said, "This is my first order to you. I forbid you to participate in such political activities anymore. I will see to your other worldly affairs later." Ramju promised to obey and then departed the train at Lonavala, while Meher Baba and the other 3 men traveled to Poona.
Yeah, but see, Baba let Nashirwan Mama continue his political thing because he was involved with Gandhi, and he was thrown in jail 5 times. So and he says, no, Nashirwan Mama. That's where he learned to be a homeopathic doctor. Dr. Ghani.
So they fought.
Ghani brought him a homeopathic manual, and he studied it in jail.
And then when was he with Baba?
Well, in between times, I mean, he used to be at Akbar Press, and Baba would come and get food out of their till when he was speaking.
Wow. Did you want to read this?
1923.
Would you?
Just start right there.
Nashirwan's 100 years old
Wow.
this year. Yeah. He was only 2 years
So he learned to
younger
be a homeopath in jail.
in jail. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, quite so.
He ran a free clinic for 41 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Ready.
Although he was now called Meher Baba or Baba by his disciples, some people in Poona who were not on intimate terms with him continued to address him as Merwan or Merwan Seth. His family still continued to call him with affection Merog. According to Meher Baba's letter, Sada Shiv Patel had erected a thatched hut in a barren field surrounded by mango trees along Ferguson College Road near the locality of Chaturushingi or something like that. As soon as pardon? That's a long word.
You did well.
Anyway, as soon as Meher Baba arrived in Poona, Sada Shiv took him to the place and he said in a pleased tone, "Shabash, well done." Meher Baba immediately occupied it on the 27th of January, 1922. The owner of the property turned out to be one of his school friends, and he plainly refused to accept any money in rent when he discovered. Now, as Meher Baba's official residence, this barren land soon took on a festive appearance. The abode of the Irani saint to the local residents and passers-by. The humble hut was built of bamboo and straw in a tent shape with an earthen floor. It was 10 feet in length and about 5 feet wide. The master would occupy the hut only at night for rest. No one else was allowed inside. During the day, he would relax outside under the shade of a tree. People would gather around him, and much of the time was spent in singing Hindu or Muslim devotional songs, bhajans or ghazals. At times, the games of Gili Danda and Atya Pataya were played, and at other times he would discourse on spiritual subjects about the path to realizing God. Only Bedi would be with Meher Baba during the night as a watchman, but after a while, Arjan Supercar also began staying there on a night watch. Early in the morning, Meher Baba would have tea and breakfast brought by Kodadat Farhad Irani from Kasba Peth, who was always referred to by his nickname, Nervous.
Oh, nervous.
He was a handsome.
Yeah.
By 9 o'clock, the rest of Kasba Peth men would come and entertain a master who was singing, led by Arjan. By 10:30, he would leave and walk with his followers several kilometers to his family's house at 765 Butler on Mohala for lunch. After relaxing for a short while with his father and mother, brothers and baby sister Mani Jia, he would return to the hut where he would read the newspapers, usually referred to as the bogus news. In the evening, his fathers would come to sing, play music, or games near the hut. Afterward, tea, sweets, or fruits would be offered as prasad. At 9 in the evening, he would eat dinner, brought by his uncle Rustam, nicknamed Masaji, and then everyone except Bedi or Arjan was told to return home. Every Thursday, Meher Baba would visit Kasba Peth, and his fathers would meet him at the former temple room and attend the Arti ceremony that he would lead. He would discourse to them, and afterwards casually talk with them, asking about the welfare of each person present, usually inquiring about each one's personal or business matters, problems and responsibilities. During the period when he had the toddy shop, he rented this room from Sada Shiv Patel. The small room had been completely transformed, resembling a temple decorated with pictures of different gurus and saints. The central picture was of Sadguru Upasni Maharaj. Arti would be performed in the morning and evening in his room, and he would always distribute prasad of fruits and sweets. During his period, he was living in a hut near Ferguson College. He would frequently visit his room to meet with those who were interested in following him. This room also served as a place where he collected and brought together his early Mandali members. Every Sunday, a large number of the people would come to the hut for his darshan. The gathering was so festive that to a stranger passing by, it appeared that a fair or carnival was being held. Ghani Sayyid Saheb and Latif would come from Bombay, and Ramju would come from Navra, from Kasba Peth, Sadashiv Arjan Gustaji Vishnu Dukutkar Kandaram Sayed Police Constable, Maria Vaital Chowdhury, Madho Baba Rao, Shekawala Val Tambat, and others would attend the darshan. I don't know who these people are. Parliamentary? Of those close ones instructed to come to Poona was Gulmai K. Irani. When he arrived, the Hindu Mandali was sitting outside the hut singing bhajans accompanied by Meher Baba, who was playing an ektara, a one-string instrument. Greeting her with a smile, Baba led her by the hand to where they were sitting. After asking how her journey from Ahmednagar was, if she was tired, he took her coat and spread it on the ground for her to sit on, saying, "Mother, if you had arrived just a little earlier, you could have heard the bhajans sung by the bangis, sweepers. They sang very well. One bangi is a friend of mine. His name is Bahadur. He loves me very much. He is a singer and also a poet. He has composed poems and songs about me. Today he brought his friends with him to sing bhajans before me, and you could have enjoyed hearing them." Baba then was handed a tambura, a string instrument, by Arjan, and joined the group in the singing of bhajans. Afterwards he gave the tambura to Gulmai and told her to play, but she did not know how. He showed her. After the bhajans, the master took her inside his hut and had her sit on a wooden crate, while he sat on the floor near her. She felt awkward sitting like this and started to join him on the floor. He stopped her and then, holding her hand, said, "I want you to know that you are my mother. I am your son. We are connected from the very beginning. I have taken birth to you in the past lives. I have much work to exact from you in the future. A day will come when I shall elevate you." He then placed his head on her shoulder, and they sat quietly together for a short while. At noon, his uncle Faridun brought dal and chapatis cooked by Aunt Dawla, which all enjoyed. Baba introduced Umai to those men who were present and spoke about the meaning of the circle of a master. Afterward, he handed her a tumbara instrument, and again they sang a song together. When Gulmai's son Adi arrived in the evening, Baba called for a staff from Kodu's house. He told Adi to play it while Gulmai sang. He could not sing loudly, but he told her, "Never mind, your voice has darn pain, which well-known singers do not possess. It is a natural gift." Before leaving the fountain...
Who is she, Gulmai?
Huh?
I was just trying to track it. This Gulmai has the stars.
Yeah, his voice had hard dard. That means pain, right? Before leaving the following day, Baba told her to come back to Poona for his birthday. When she arrived a day or two prior to the celebration, he told her to join him in Mandalay when they visited Baba Jan in the evening. It was Gulmai's first meeting with the ancient woman, Kotab, whom she had heard was greatly revered by many people in Poona. As Gulmai was about to put her head on Baba Jan's feet, Baba Jan stopped her, crying out, "You are dragging me to sin." This startled Gulmai. Baba Jan pressed Gulmai's head and embraced her, speaking softly, You are my mother too." In celebration of Meher Baba's 28th birthday on February 18th, 1922, Sadar Shiv decorated the top floor of this house and invited all the master's followers there. Baba arrived in the evening after a lavish meal. A master musician from Bombay played the sitar and sang beautifully. The music performance lasted late into the night, and the celebration ended with all singing the arti that Meher Baba had written dedicated to Upasni Maharaj. Surprisingly, he stayed the night of Sadar Shiv's instead of returning to the hut. For the celebration afterwards, Meher Baba instructed Gumai to spend the night at his family's house. Shireen took Gumai by the hand, and as they were leaving, he said, "These two ladies are my mothers, one worldly and the other spiritual." Gumai presented him with some clothes and a thin gold chain with Zarathustra portrait and a locket. The next day, he went to the railway station to bid farewell to her and the others who had come from Ahmednagar. Although Meher Baba had moved out of the parents' house, he would join them each afternoon for lunch, out of respect. Upon entering their house, he would bow and kiss the feet of both his parents. He still called his father Bobo and his mother Memo, as they in turn still called him Mera. Spiritually, Shirari knew which had become of his son who he was, but Shireen continued to take him as her favorite son, whom she loved most. His mother did not like him staying away from home, and in the unbefitting whole attached heart, Shireen still was not reconciled to how he had changed and continued to shed tears over his absence.